Hi, friend. Welcome to week 3. We're on chapter 3 of Jonah, and I don't know about you, but I was super excited to dig into the word today. I hope you have found God's grace today. Certainly, that is what I have seen. God is a God of second chances. So let's go ahead and read this passage, and we'll dig in, unpacking it. Jonah, chapter 3, verse 1. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, 3 days' journey in breadth. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey, and he called out, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. All right, well, as usual, per usual, this is just my mode of doing inductive study. I love asking those detective questions, even though it might feel a little bit redundant. It helps me slow down and take a look at what the passage has to say. My first question, who? Well, we have Jonah, of course, and we have the Lord. And then what? Well, the Lord gives Jonah a word a second time. And notice that the word of the Lord has not changed from Jonah chapter 1, verse 2. It remains the same. And I had to pause there, friends, and really just give glory to God. Here is God's grace. And in my interpretation column, that's what I put. I just put grace with an exclamation point. Amazing grace. Jonah incurs a great failure. And we don't know, but perhaps his failure of the first time God asking him to go to Nineveh, which was east, and Jonah went west and got on a boat in the middle of he's in the middle of the sea. Perhaps, we don't know Jonah's whole life, but perhaps this was his greatest failure yet. And here we have God giving Jonah a second chance. I don't know, even just speaking that out loud brings tears to my eyes. Friend, be encouraged. God is a God of second chances. He truly is, as he proclaimed himself to be in Exodus to Moses, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Friends, aren't we seeing that in the life of Jonah? That this is who God is, and Jonah experiences God's grace and his mercy and his slowness to anger and his steadfast love and faithfulness in a very personal way. So, yeah, okay. I had to pause. You can tell I paused right there, pondered, and gave glory to God, which I think is good and right. Like in my application column, I put praise and thank God for who he is, that he is a God of second chances. All right, so unpacking this a little bit further, slowing down to ask questions, be curious, notice some things from the passage. I noticed that the message has not changed from Jonah chapter 1, verse 2. Arise, and we defined it back in chapter 1. Stand up, Jonah, get up, go. And this time I was just like, okay, get yourself to Nineveh, right? Get your little behind to Nineveh. Arise, go, and then call out, proclaim, state or announce something formally and authoritatively. So this message has not changed at all. Again, asking the where question, because the where is incredibly important here. The where is Nineveh. Nineveh is mentioned, I think, 4 times in this short passage. Yeah, it is 4 times. So this is all about Nineveh. Nineveh is Nineveh, we talked about, and I said, what did I say? Look back, notice, where did I write that? Oh, Nineveh, see notes on page 50. So I just took myself back to Jonah chapter 1, verse 2, remembering that Nineveh is this capital of Assyria, and Nineveh is described as evil here in chapter 1, evil. And the Israelites would have viewed Nineveh as the enemy, right? We talked about that back in Jonah chapter 1. They would have considered, because Nineveh was worshiping these other gods, these pagan gods, they would have seen Nineveh as an enemy of God and an enemy of the Israelites, worthy to be destroyed. So that's important to remember. This is who Nineveh is. Now here in today's passage, we get another little interesting clue that I've never noticed before. What does the passage say? According to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, 3 days' journey in breadth. So we know this is a huge city in the ancient Near East, right? It takes 3 days to get through the city. But what does it mean, an exceedingly great city? We've seen God refer to Nineveh as a great city a number of times now, but what is exceedingly great? And I just thought, okay, it's greater than great, right? But when I dug into it, like that was a word I put into my keyword column. Friends, this one surprised me, and I'm surprised a little bit by the English translation. Exceedingly actually is the word Elohim. It's the word for God. And it really, the passage could read, let me go back here. Now, Nineveh was a great city to God. All right, that has a different context. I literally said out loud, wow, that changes the game here. Nineveh is a great city to who? To God, to Elohim. What does that mean, friends? God has a heart for Nineveh. God has a heart for the enemy of the Israelites. God has a heart for those who are against him. Just sit and ponder that for a little bit. God has a heart for the enemy. Whew. That's beautiful. Once again, that just kind of brings tears to my eyes. What else did I unpack? Oh, okay. So let's keep going. Verse 4, Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey, and he called out, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And as I, sought to understand that, we can understand that Jonah actually goes into Nineveh, right? He enters into the city. And I thought, wow, this is a big step of faith for Jonah. You know what I mean? He enters in, he trusts and he obeys God. He enters into enemy territory with faith in God. And I don't know, I had to see his message too. What's the message he is declaring in Nineveh? Yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. Like if we go back to Jonah's prayer, this was his prayer. This is the last verse of his prayer from the belly of a fish. But I, with a voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. All right, so we know Jonah has this heart now to use his voice. It's a voice of thanksgiving to proclaim the Lord and to proclaim that salvation is from the Lord. This is his heart. And I don't know, I get excited to see that Jonah is trusting and obeying, and he is fulfilling his vow to use his voice of thanksgiving to declare this message that salvation belongs to the Lord. And as I sat and pondered this, friends, I just had to consider how much more potent, how much more powerful is Jonah's message after experiencing his great failure and after experiencing his own, his own experience of being overthrown by God. And then on top of it, experiencing God's grace. Like, how much more powerful is his message? So, I don't know, there's this thread in here where I feel like God he can even utilize our failures, you know what I mean? And he can utilize the pits that we find ourselves in. He can utilize our distress, our trials that we go through. And our story becomes that much more powerful, that much more potent. I mean, doesn't he have a personal and powerful story to share with those in Nineveh? Yes, he is proclaiming, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And I think I used to just picture Jonah meandering through the city just over and over and over and over and over again, exclaiming this, yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown. But friends, surely he had conversations with people. Surely people wanted to know, who are you? And why are you saying this? And he had to explain. He would have shared his story. And wouldn't his story get people's attention? His story would surely get people's attention and would surely bear witness to the power of Yahweh. And here is what Yahweh has done in Jonah's life. Here's what happened to Jonah when he refused to go to Nineveh the first time. But God has extended grace to Jonah. God has allowed for Jonah to actually go to Nineveh. He is proclaiming this message. I think the people of Nineveh would have been amazed and would have been talking about this story. So anyway, friends, that's my takeaway for today. I want to end. What is it that I learned about who God is? I've alluded to all of this, I think, but number one, God is a God of second chances. Number two, God values Nineveh. God values the enemy. He has a heart for the enemy. And if we stop and think about it, friends, we ourselves have been the enemy of God, and he has given us a second chance. And I know he gives Carmen a second chance after second chance after second chance. Number three, through Jonah, God extends his grace to the people of Nineveh, and we see him extending his grace to the enemy. Oh, friends, lots of beautiful stuff to think about who God is for today. This ought to encourage our hearts. God's heart has not changed in the least. He still gives second chances. He still has a heart for the enemy. Oh, let's bow down and worship him today.